It's the third episode, and it's time. This is essentially part one of a sub-series. You know how Civi does some games in parts, like Postal, or Postal? This is sorta like that, except I have absolutely no footage recorded past what's in this episode. I don't know when or even if there will be a part 2 to this, and if this does continue, and I do forge on to the end of this game, there is no telling how many episodes over how many years it will take. You see, I want to finish today's game, if only to put that part of my tormented mind to rest. Today's game and I have a history. A short history, sure, but one that left me confused and wondering if my memories of it were real. To give you adequate context for why this game has been my white cisgender whale for so long, know that as a North American teenager in the 90s, the choices were basically N64 or PlayStation 1. Having grown up with the NES, Super Nintendo, the Game Boy, and the fucking Virtual Boy, I went with the N64, while many of my friends went with PS1. I mean, it worked out, because the N64 has tons of awesome games that I spent tons of hours playing, and I still got to play PS1 games at my friends' places, or when they would bring the console to my house. Most of the time we would be playing the N64, since that's where all the big multiplayer console games were at the time, obviously, so I only had limited time with the PlayStation library. When I was alone, however, I was limited to the N64. Don't get me wrong, the N64 served me well, tons of big games, big adventures to go on, lots of content, sometimes too much content, but I wasn't hurting for games to play. But having come off Super Nintendo, I found myself suddenly starving for one thing in particular: RPGs. And today's game was, and quite possibly still is, an RPG for the N64. For me, the hype was real. See, there are only 5 RPGs for the N64 in the North American market. I know that sounds like a lot, since most people can only name like 2. Paper Mario, easily the best RPG on the N64, and Quest 64, which was widely regarded as shit. Maybe some will remember Ogre Battle 64, which is more of a strategy game than an RPG, but people were desperate back then, so they counted it as an RPG and hoped nobody would notice. The one nobody ever seems to remember is Hybrid Heaven from Konami, which is a pretty interesting game that I kind of like, even though I never did figure out if it's actually a good game or not. Oh, and the other game nobody remembers is today's game, Aidyn Chronicles. Made by H2O Entertainment, the developer of the new Tetris and Tetrisphere for the N64. Certainly an interesting choice of developer for an ambitious open-world RPG on the N64 from THQ, the publisher of Quest 64, which was widely regarded as shit. Okay, so we boot up the game, which we're playing on an emulator because I want save states, because I don't know what kind of dicketry this game has in store for me, but I know that it takes half a goddamn year to get anything done in it, so I don't want to wind up having to redo any long stretches of anything. This game was trying to be an open-world RPG. Open world. On the N64. It's a ballsy move, and the fact that they got such a large map running on the N64 as well as they did is kind of impressive, but then you start to notice how little environmental detail there is. There aren't enough polygons left over for that kind of stuff, so similar looking areas start looking indistinguishable, all equally lifeless and ugly. This isn't a map you move an oversized avatar around on to move from town to town, this is just the world. You're proportional to everything here, and the game's camera is behind your back at eye level. It's kind of like if Final Fantasy VII took place entirely on the world map. While I'm writing the script, I'm actually stalling, trying to put off actually watching the footage again. Ironically, the more I write, the more I have to edit, which means I'll end up watching some of this footage many more times as a result. Let's be poop! I swear I won't always name my characters stupid things like this, only when it's warranted, and here it's warranted. This isn't poop. It's shit, but it's not poop. It's a cook sent to look for poop? Then we flash back and see Poop doing whatever the hell this is. Back to the present, and the cook is talking to this knight dude, Abrakan. I guess Poop is a squire who enchanted a sword, and Abrakan doesn't like that. Another flashback? Not sure what's up with the sky here, but I think it's because I'm running this on an emulator for the aforementioned save states, and since I don't really have a way of capturing directly from an N64 at the moment. Anyway, Poop runs through the quote-unquote forest. Poop, come out immediately. I would just like to say that I didn't plan this, and for me at least, that just makes it better. This whole scene goes on way too long. In between the cook just looking around the castle for Poop, we see Poop outside the castle about to be ambushed by what I'm assuming are meant to be goblins? Eventually the cook is told where Poop actually is by what I'm assuming is meant to be a goblin? Oh, a prince. Sure, buddy, whatever you say. Poop is in the forest looking for a lost farmer. We see Poop in an overly long scene involving him talking to nobody next to the treasure chest that I just want to open already. Does anyone else find seeing a treasure chest in a cutscene incredibly distracting? I start getting impatient. I just want to see what's inside. Thankfully, after this scene, we get to play. I grab the 3 healing potions from the chest and I round the corner to find these weird little green fuckers. They're called Mirari. They talk to Poop about some bullshit, and then this one just casually drops that info that everyone's searching the castle for Poop. First off, how do you know that? Second, only the cook was looking for Poop, and he now knows where he is, so I'm assuming the cook went back to the kitchen and sent someone else to search for Poop outside the castle, since he's clearly not still within the castle. This conversation goes on way too long, with talk of finding the farmer and the king being angry and the mini people having spice. When do I get to play the game for real? Like, seriously. Well, after that 3.5-minute cutscene, I'm given control again. I run forward a little bit, and suddenly I'm in a random battle with a bat. Okay, cool. This is what I want. The actual gameplay. I want to fight things and explore the world. I'm absolutely fine with random encounters in my RPGs. I mean, random encounters can be done poorly and become extremely frustrating or annoying, older versions of Final Fantasy II, but as a concept, I'm totally happy to deal with random encounters in my RPGs. And turn-based combat is cool too. Aidyn Chronicles has a turn-based combat system that's actually not too bad on the surface. You have a radius of movement and different control buttons bringing up different types of actions. Move yourself into advantageous position and unleash violence onto your foes. It's a bit clunky, but it seems pretty solid. I can move and fight the bat with ease. Oh, and winning the fight reminds me how leveling works in this game. Each stat and skill has an XP cost to upgrade, so as long as you have the XP, you can upgrade whichever stat and skills you want. Honestly, other than a slow start and some terrible graphics for a game released in 2001, first impressions aren't too bad. Was I too hard on this back in the day? Maybe this is a good game. It's a hat. I found it. It's mine. Fuck you. Eat shit and die. Then immediately after that, you find this weird alien teleporter thing. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't seem to do anything right now, and the game doesn't feel the need to explain itself, so I ignore the big obvious point of interest just around the corner from the farmer's hat, and instead walk down this nondescript path before finally running into one of these goblins that were teased way back before any of us were born. Our dumbass tries talking to the goblin, but the goblin's friends ambush us. Poop is poisoned and passes out. Then immediately we cut to him standing up after a long slumber. Like, he just woke up, already standing. This upstanding citizen dragged you to safety, apparently. I guess the goblins couldn't tell the difference between a sleeping Poop and a dead Poop, so they just fucked off after you collapsed. This lady, Oriana, was able to partially heal the poison that goblins hit you with, but you'll need to go back to the castle to get fully healed up. As is customary, the scene involves a lot of needless back and forth. The writing in this game needs some major edits. This scene goes on for quite a while, and the crackling fire sound in the background is pretty soothing, so I'm struggling to stay awake through the whole thing. The moment I hit the button to end this scene and advance to the next one, I fall asleep for exactly 2 hours. Yeah. Nah, that's not even a joke. So far, the music in this game has been a lot of simple, repetitive sounds, and that trend continues here. It's like every scene either has sound effects and no music, or music and no sound effects. What the fuck? Anyway, I'm not saying the music is bad exactly, because a good video game soundtrack doesn't need to be something I'd want to listen to in the car. Case in point, Quake. Alright, I guess there's more dialogue. I don't know who this bitch is, but considering how very subtle and not in your face her friends are about their desires, it's probably safe to assume she's not to be trusted. Fuck it, if any of this ever becomes relevant, I'll come back to this, but we're moving on. You wake up from whatever the fuck, where this lady says some shit and Poop says some shit, and come on, I just want to play. Vision's great, let's go, okay. Oh, what? Training? Alright, now we're talking. Okay, I nab myself some healing ability and some skill with thrown weapons. You know, pretty good. Okay, after that, the game starts for real. You're supposed to follow these lights back to the road that leads to the castles, so I do. I'm running along, fighting rats and bats, finding treasures hidden along the way, and it's pretty good. I'm having fun, you know, everything's a bit slow and clunky. Every fight seems to begin with a few turns of you and the enemy just moving towards each other, but that could just be an early game thing to allow you ample opportunity to escape from battles until you're more prepared. I don't know, but either way, I'm having a good time. Eventually you run into a guy, I'll assume he's a knight, and he and Poop recap the story so far in case there are any players out there who literally fell asleep trying to get this far. Check out these mountains in the background, resolution lower than an Atari 2600 game. The rounded edges on the pixels are only because the N64, not content with being a fairly powerful little home console for its time, was insecure about its low resolution textures and tried to blur everything so you couldn't tell. There's not much going on moment to moment at this point. Getting ganged up on by a bunch of giant fucking rats, the fight only takes 3 entire minutes to complete. Finally make it back to town. It's raining, there's a not great song playing, the atmosphere in this ugly-ass game is sometimes not too bad. And the first guy we run into asks if they sent us. What? Is this meant to be a joke? Is it hinting at a side quest? I don't know, I guess it's not important right now.
The boy? The healer told me to look for you.
What's been going on in the forest?
You look a little sick, boy. Have you been eating the herbs near the campground?
I appreciate your help. The fuck was that? Can you help me, miss?
Certainly, squire. We all owe so much to the knighthood.
I just wanted to know if I'm anywhere near the castle. Why? Why would you ask that? You came from the goddamn castle. Why would anyone write this? I'm pretty sure there's a button for camera control, but I haven't found it yet. But why wouldn't you take this opportunity to teach me that? To teach it to me? The lady just says the castle's to the west, and it's not. It's to the north. But why not just teach me to look around so I can, for sure, see for myself the giant goddamn castle? Running around town talking to randos isn't all bad, though, as you can find the occasional trainer or store. Finding a trainer and seeing the variety of skills they can train you in is a delight. Skills that can help you read better or play musical instruments or pick locks or climb certain walls. You might also find an open journal or a stray treasure box in and around the buildings of this town. It's good stuff. I finally make my way up to the castle, where another series of long cutscenes needs to play out, starting with this meeting with Sir Abercon and Prince Sheridan right outside the front door. They were getting ready to go out and search for you again, and when Poop mentions an attack and Prince Sheridan asks him when he was attacked, Poop decides he doesn't feel like recapping the entire beginning of the game all over again. Abercon tells Sheridan to head to the training room to tell everyone the search is called off. Sheridan runs off to do just that, and oh wait, he just stands a few feet away with his back turned. Is it a bug? I don't know. So Poop recaps the entire beginning of the game all over again to Abercon, who tells him to head to the throne room. Then, with his back turned away from the castle, he notices Sheridan is still there. I mean, I guess he saw him when he was looking directly at him for several moments, and his brain didn't register it until this moment. He tells Sheridan to get going, and Sheridan spends the rest of the scene not doing that, until the scene ends and Abercon and Sheridan are both suddenly gone. Before the end of the scene, Abercon laid out a few objectives for you to complete. Just a few people you need to talk to, so it's time to explore the castle. It's fairly big, so I'm going to skip over most of it. I talk to a few people along the way, but make my way over to the throne room before too long. In a scene that surprisingly begins well after the king already knows the whole story, he tells Poop to head to Aramon to get help healing the poison. He tells you to bring along some companions and gives you a short list of possible candidates that he can spare. He also tells you to talk to some guy about equipment and then thank another guy for being a friend and then tell the farmer's family that the farmer you went looking for is dead, but fuck them, that sweet hat is mine. I found it, fucking fight me. The king also says Poop can be a knight if he successfully doesn't die out there, and Abercon is not terribly pleased.
Make him a knight? Now you really are too generous, sir.
Sir is your title? You refer to him as your majesty.
Too generous by far!
Jesus fucking Christ, what's wrong with you? What the hell is this camera angle? This whole scene is scripted. I can't make Poop accidentally stand in the wrong place before the scene begins. Okay, so we pick our companions. Alongside Poop will be cranky bitch Abercon, childhood friend Brenna, and Rita, who is a magic magician. We head over to see Master Traherne, who gives our party some equipment. Oh, and I guess there's some sword that this guy lent to someone else and he wants it back, but he can't remember who he lent it to. Sounds fun. Search the castle and talk to people for clues to the whereabouts of the missing sword. Great. One thing though. Every random NPC in this game gives you a scene where the conversation is pieced together using generic dialogue that theoretically should fit together in a cohesive manner. The NPCs important enough to receive names, as far as I can tell, don't talk about the sword. Nobody in the castle talks about the sword. It is entirely possible, in fact, It's very likely that I missed something simple like a dialogue choice somewhere, but I forgot this sword was even a thing until I came back to this triangle-handed dickhead to get this equipment, and he reminded me of the sword. I didn't mention it earlier because I'm skipping a lot of boring and pointless stuff, but I talked to this guy before talking to the king, so he must have told me about the sword then. I then went through the entire castle after talking to the king and talked to everyone, trying to figure out who best to add to my party and looking for treasures, completely forgetting about the sword side quest with absolutely no reminders until I talked to this dildo again. It never came up. So this guy lent a sword to someone, somewhere. That's your only hint. And it doesn't seem to be anyone in the castle. There are no named NPCs in the town outside the castle. So either this sword was given to a totally random NPC in the town, in which case, no thanks, I've got better things to do, or it was given to a named NPC somewhere in the world, in which case I guess we'll find it if we find it. The third option is that it was given to a random NPC somewhere in the world, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. Either way, not going to waste my time worrying about this. I've got a journey ahead of me. Hey look, I found some treasure hiding behind the draw distance. Hell yeah, adventure! This is going to be great. Going to fight monsters and find treasure and level up our party. This won't be like last time when we got poisoned by goblins and didn't even save that farmer guy. Oh right, Kendall. I guess I should let his family know. So I pop in and tell the wife the good news about her promotion to widow, and now we're on our way to, shit, there's a ghost. I mean, what the fuck is this now? Like, I don't even understand. What are you looking at? Why don't you ever look forward? Is this some kind of condition? Look at the giant rat. Okay, fuck it, battle time. 4-minute long battle time in which the first 30 to 60 seconds are just the enemies and the party slowly moving close enough to actually fight each other, and me using Sense Aura and having no idea if it did anything. The battles are fine. Honestly, I kind of like the battle system, but everything is so goddamn slow. Thankfully though, less than 30 seconds after that slog of a battle, I get into another multi-minute long battle. It's shorter than the previous battle, but still felt like a relative eternity. It's okay though, because I fell asleep again. Oh cool, the sword side quest is mentioned in the giant wall of text journal that operates similarly to the default Morrowind journal, which is the first thing I grab a mod for anytime I play that game. Anyway, heading west to Aramon, which is a village of Mirari and not an erotic Digimon, fighting bats, rats, wolves, so many wolves, and I guess minotaurs? Minotaurs are low-level enemies, sure, why not? Fuck it. Along the way, we talk to What's-Her-Face about magic, meet a dumbass on the road, fight some bandits, witness the lens-flariest dirt ever, and generally have an okay time until we reach the Mirari town of Aramon and their giant crystal bong. Well, I guess Rita died along the way, but apart from her, everyone else had an adequately satisfactory time. The first and only time I played this before, this is where I dropped the game. Are you open for business, ma'am? Say what you wanting? What should I know about the town? Maybe. I saw that shit and realized that I had already experienced the most polished part of the game. Everything beyond the opening definitely didn't get the same level of attention, and if I wanted to play a good game in the year 2000, I had plenty of better options. Now, however, I'm going to try to get through this because I guess I've got nothing better going on, and I want to know if this really is a bad game or if there's some good stuff in here.
In the beginning of all things, the dragon was there and bid with the Mirari, and the Mirari with the dragon, and the dragon said, "This is the beginning, and all magic comes through me, and the dragon is magic, and anything with all magic in it is the dragon, is the magic in it, and that magic is the magic of the dragon and the Mirari, and becomes what is in the world, and bids with the world is magic all."
I see, that explains everything, thanks. Oh look, that ghost from earlier left a message in this creepy book of prophecies that tells me there's no cure for my goblin poison and something about a swallower of worlds. Aramon isn't the biggest place to navigate, but at first it can be tough to navigate because it can be hard to remember where you've already been when you can't actually see where you've already been. There's also some sort of cave system that can also take you to all the different copied and pasted buildings, and there might be more NPCs in there, but don't go in there. It's a waste of time and a good way to get lost. Actually, no, it gives you a mini-map. Use the tunnels, because at least you can keep track of the tunnels you've gone down since they're not incorporeal. I eventually stumble onto the palace with the king, who tells me that he'll spare a healer to help rid Poop of poison if we get rid of the goblins plaguing the area. Alright, sounds good. He says follow the riverbank, find the goblin camp, and defeat the goblin leader, or else the goblins will keep coming back. Easy. I'm pumped. As slow as it is, I much prefer the combat to the town exploration. NPCs so far have not been beacons of excitement. Some of them sell you items, train you in different skills, and even give you side quests, but you won't know which ones are which the first time you play, so you need to search every building and talk to every person just to figure out who you should talk to in the future and who you should ignore completely. This kind of thing is fine in classic 2D RPGs like Dragon Quest because the areas you're exploring are generally small and simple to navigate, so even if the graphics are butt-covered ass, figuring out what's in a town won't take very long. 3D RPGs, like later Dragon Quest games, usually have bigger towns, but the layouts are still kept pretty straightforward and simple, and important characters will often be highlighted so as to help stand out in a crowd. The end result is a bigger, more vibrant RPG town that still retains the light, breezy flow of classic RPGs. However, those are Japanese RPGs. Aidyn Chronicles has much more in common with classic American RPGs, like Baldur's Gate and Elder Scrolls. These games can sometimes give you much larger towns to explore with people everywhere who don't really offer much to say, but in the name of player freedom, you can still talk to them. You're not really meant to talk to everyone, though, so just like in modern RPGs, the more important characters will, once again, stand out in some way. This game is too ugh-ass-buttly to even tell what you're looking at most of the time, so most of the characters don't stand out. Sure, I spent hours upon hours in Vivek and Morrowind, and honestly, Vivek sucks. But I still had fun doing it because there were lots of interesting things to find, pieces of lore to discover, locks to pick, trinkets to steal, and tons of interesting dialogue that fleshed out the world, as well as dishing out furthering side quests. In Aidyn Chronicles, I've definitely spent far less time in Ahriman, maybe around an hour total, but the vast majority of it was unmemorable, slow, it didn't flesh out the world at all, and it was all boring. There is the very rare treasure chest to find that sometimes requires lockpicking, and it seems like there are a small handful of side quests in towns, but the side quests are a chore when they involve anything more than simply bashing in a few nearby monsters. Half the dialogue doesn't make sense because almost all of it is bits and pieces of conversation smashed haphazardly together. Alright, fine, whatever, I've got my bearings now. I know where the important characters are in Ahriman, so there shouldn't be any more wasted time here. Time to head out and find goblins to kill. Oh, it's a teleporter. Good stuff. Not really important right now, let's go back. So the king said to follow the river to the goblin camp north of Ahriman. The river is veering off to the west, so I'll just check up this mountain pass real quick and see if the goblin camp is up here. And what's this? A tent? Did I find the goblin camp? Pop inside, and sure enough, here's goblins. 6 goblins, although you only fight 4 at a time, with the other 2 coming in once spots open up for them. This fight lasted for 13.5 minutes, and none of the goblins were the goblin leader, apparently. So onward. I guess I'll keep exploring the mountains, since I feel like I'm on the right track here. Okay, well, I went around in a circle and wound up back in Ahriman, so alright, let's follow the river. And that's what ogres look like in this game. This path starts heading north again, so it must be this way. And the path is blocked by a bear. Okay, back up the mountain, I guess? Must have missed an alternate path or something. I'll head back into town to heal up and resupply, and hey, new party member. Maybe it's pronounced beacon, but I prefer bacon. Let's go bacon. I have no idea where these goblins are. I give up. Next time, a good RPG with big-ass birds.